So, it's the first day of class. As the students begin to take their seats, the professor moves to the front of the room. He then provides them with an overview of everything he'll be covering in that semester. He also tells them that there'll be no pop-up quizzes, no midterm, and no research papers. As you can imagine, the students are absolutely thrilled. Well, in the midst of that festivity, he clarifies for them what he is expecting. He said, I'm expecting you to be at all 3 of my lectures and our discussion times each week. And I'm also expecting you to read everything on your assigned reading list. If you do that, you'll have the content that you'll need when it comes to the final exam. And he said, there's one other thing I'd like to ask you to do. I'd like each one of you to find one other person to whom you'll pass along what you're learning in this class. And then abruptly, he ends the class 30 minutes early. Well, as the students are walking out the door, they think this is going to be the easiest class that they've ever had. Well, the professor, he held up his end of the bargain. There wasn't a midterm, there wasn't pop-up quizzes, and there are certainly no research papers. He did a great job each week of making sure his students fully understood what it was he was teaching. And he even spent extra time with those who needed it. Fast forward with me now 15 weeks, the end of the semester. It's the last class before the final exam class. And he says to them, I've done everything I know to pour into you what I know about this subject. And then he said, do you remember on that first day of class, I asked each one of you to find one other person that you would pass on what you're learning? He said, when you leave here, it's important that you go to see them and make sure that their schedules are clear so they can be here for the final exam. You see, they're going to take your final exam for you, and their grade will be your final grade. Wow. Now let me ask you a question. If, based on what Jesus asked us to do in Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 to 20, to go make disciples, teaching them to obey what I've commanded you, and it was you and I that were being tested, and we had to bring in 1 or 2 or whatever those people we've poured into, and they would be taking, so to speak, our final exam, how would we do? How would we sleep the night before? You see, that's Jesus' command. It's the last command he gave us in the book of Matthew, to go make disciples. And yet somehow it seems like that truth has fallen through the cracks. As one of my dear friends recently said to me, he said it's like Jesus' last command has become our least concern. Well, as somebody that's been a disciple and been discipling for nearly 4 decades now, I have had some friends of mine come and said, Dave, you speak about this all over the country. Would you put this in some written form? And so I've been doing that for almost a year now. And it's called the Jesus Blueprint. We're just about done with it, and it's going to be released on July 30th. But it'll only be released if I get your help. This book contains opportunities to help people catch Jesus' vision and his heart for disciple making. It also helps them understand what I refer to as the dozen domains of society. Things like arts, entertainment, and sports, business, media, science, technology, agriculture and environment, business and commerce. Areas like that, 12 of them, that I believe that as disciples of Jesus, we are called not only to make disciples within the church, but within followers of Jesus who serve in those domains of society. And so we introduce that whole concept in the book. And then how do you cultivate disciple-making communities in a church and in these sectors of society? Also, how do you practically go about making disciple makers, not just disciples, but people that will reproduce disciples? That's what's contained in the Jesus Blueprint. And as I said, the only way we can do this is if you're willing to help. And so I'm asking you to please help us raise the money necessary to be able to have this book ready and done so that we can serve the body of Christ with the teaching of it, equip them to be able to run the race that Jesus has asked us to run, and to see some transformation come within culture. I believe that we change culture by changing people through discipleship. If God disciples someone in his character, his ways, and his mission, and that person serves in an area of society, they can make a difference. Thank you for letting me share my heart with you, and thank you so much for giving me a hand.